Is this the worst policy mistake you can make in Call of Dragons? I think so, as for 99% of the player base, this would end up being a massive trap that could destroy your entire account. So today we will go over exactly why that is and show you an example in the worst case scenario possible where someone destroyed their entire account because of this policy. Hey everyone, Zorraz here from Not Casual. So we're gonna go right into the 3 healthcare policies that have been added this season. Now, of course, they are all pretty interesting and offer very different playstyles. The first one will just simply give you a lot of elixir production every day, which means you get to heal 50,000 more troops a day. So that is obviously great. And you gain more prestige, which is going to allow you to get more policies. So this is a very good policy, especially the earlier on you get it. Now, the second one, Reprieve, is arguably better for long term for small or medium spenders, as it increases by 20,000. So you still have a decent amount, but you also reduce your base healing cost by 25%, and you are going to have more merit as well as more resource healing, which is also very good. So this is ultimately the one I should have taken, but in any case, this in my opinion is the best option for almost every player, simply because of the merit and the amount of healing saved you will have. The difference between the two is really not massive. It's just not worth respecting for me currently, but in any case, otherwise I would say that this is worth respecting for. Now, lastly, the healthcare diligence is, in my opinion, the worst policy you could ever take, even worse than cursed swords. And the reason being, of course, that it limits your hospital capacity to 1.5 million. So if we go and see my hospital currently, for example, you will see that I have 666,000 units in the hospital, which is not a lot, considering that I have over 3.5, almost 4 million troops total. But this is where it can get very, very wrong. So, for example, let's say you are going to have 1.4 million or 1.5 million units in your hospital. Well, you will be completely unable to fight in any scenario until you heal. Now, other than using your elixir and everything like that, you can obviously heal up a lot that way. But if you run out of elixir, which will happen very quickly when you have a heavy war season, you will then have to use resource healing. Now, if you can see how expensive resource healing, this is not even 200,000 units, and it is already 100 million resources, including a lot of mana, which, as people know, mana is incredibly hard and expensive to get. You will have a hard time healing unless you are a massive whale. So you will be forced to either spend all your resources healing or not fight whatsoever, because if you have a capacity of 1.5 million in a hospital, any unit that gets injured will die instantly, simply just disappear from the game forever. And that is going to mean that you're going to have to retrain it, which costs a lot of resource and speed ups. So it is obviously something that anyone but whales will not be able to do, because you will need infinite amount of resource. If you run out, you're going to have to spend money. Otherwise, you will not be able to play. So you will see very quickly that many whales who will have picked this will heavily regret, because people who have 10, 20, 30 million T5 troops, I'm thinking of the massive whales, but even the medium or large whales of 100 million plus will be at multiple 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 million troops. And that means that you could fight until you have all of these 10 million troops in the hospital. But in this situation, you will not be able to do that, because as soon as you have 1.5 million, you are completely limited and you cannot do anything until you resource heal or use your elixir to heal. So this is very hard. Obviously the advantage, March speed is very interesting. It's a good thing, but it's very minimal. It does reduce your healing base cost reduction by 50%. So this is a significant amount, and it does allow you to resource heal 2 million more troops a day. But even then, you know, you will be able to pick a lot of policies to allow you to resource heal more. But, you know, as you can see, I'm limited by the amount of resource healing I can do in a day, and I'm stacking from basically 3 days with the policies. You can obviously get quite a few million here, let's say 4, 5, 6 million daily resource healing. So you will be able to heal a lot of troops every day, but you will go through a lot of resources. And while you do reduce the cost with the policy, it still is capped at some point. You have a base cost reduction and an additional cost reduction that kind of don't stack together. They kind of multiply each other, which means it's never going to go to 0 or 5%. Now, I already have some of these buffs because you just get them generally from, for example, villages and stuff that reduce the cost of healing. You know, these things, daily resource healing limit and resource healing cost. So I have 8% less everywhere. Now, this is resource healing cost, not base healing cost. So that's what I mean. Resource healing cost times base healing cost reduction. That is how much your percentage. So if you have 60% and 60% of both, well, that means you're still going to be paying 40% of your healing cost total generally. So it's complicated math that most people don't really have to care about because it doesn't affect them. But in any case, it means you're going to have to spend resources, you're going to be limited, and you will be having a hard time if you do not have infinite amount of money to use for mana specifically. You're going to be fine with everything else if you have money, but mana you're not. You're going to be buying the pack every day and then wait until the next day to buy the packs, and then you're not going to be able to fight. So it is a really tricky policy. For some players it makes sense, but you know, this is oriented for like whales who have a lot of resource stacked up and a lot of money to spend in a very big war. It will make a difference then to win the season, but for 99% of the player base, this is not something you should pick because you will hurt yourself more than you will help yourself, and you would get way more benefit from this because this still allows you to do a very decent amount of resource healing. If you're not a person that spends thousands of dollars on packs a month on this game, you will not be able to sustain the amount of healing that this will require, but you will be able to sustain the amount of healing that Reprieve does require. And then when you have some of the other policies that increase the amount of resource healing you can do per day, it will stack together very well, giving you a lot of potential of resource healing every day. So this is, in my opinion, one of the really big trap. Now here we're going to be watching exactly why you should not be picking this policy if you're not a massive whale. And on top of that, if you are getting rallied and if you're AFK and getting zeroed, so as many of you know in this game compared to Rise of Kingdom, for example, one of the massive advantage is that when you do get rallied in this game, you only lose 10% of your severely wounded units that are going to die, while the enemy loses 50% of theirs. So even if you get rallied over and over and completely zeroed with all your troops in the hospital, you still will only have lost 10-ish%, maybe a little bit more, of your total troops, while you will still be able to heal them over the next few weeks without any problems, and your account is not going to suffer. You're not going to be out of the game for months. You are just simply going to have to wait, heal up, and then you're part of the game again. As opposed to if you have this policy and you somehow get rallied, you're AFK, you are on a flag that gets destroyed, something gets disconnected. There's a lot of these kind of bugs in this game still to this day, which makes this even more risky. You will then get rallied and lose every single troop you have, up to 1.5 million. So you will be left with an account. If you had 4 million troops, you will be left with 1.5 million, and then everything else is gone forever. T5, T4, it doesn't matter. If you have drunkies to farm and they are taking up 100,000 of your hospital spot, well, you're going to be losing every other troop, as they are going to count as one of the 1.5 million. So you should also delete all your drunkie if you take that policy, and anything that's not T5 really, to be honest, but really drunkies are the most important. But really, this is a prime example. You can see this player here who got rallied over and over by us, and while we didn't know he had this policy, does happen to have lost something like 30 million power, I think, in the end. And you can see here hundreds of thousands of dead. Once his hospital got full at 1.5 million, everything else afterwards just died. It was absolutely bloodbath. It was completely crazy. And this is a very big warning to anyone else thinking about it. Of course, there are players that will apply, and in TFS, there will be a lot of players who will apply because it is a whale alliance. But the majority of people in this game, 95% of players in this game, haven't spent more than a few $100s in the game. And when they're going to be looking at other players saying, oh, I think this is a good policy, everybody's picking it. No, it is not. You shouldn't be picking it. You should be very careful with this policy. One mistake can ruin your account, and the amount of gain that you're going to get from the policy will not come anywhere close to the risk that you're taking of your entire account getting wiped out. And this is going to be only more true if this policy stays for future season as we get more and more troops. Having a limit is just simply incomprehensible how bad it can be for your account until you've seen it happen in Rise of Kingdom, where you have a 100 million power account that gets to 55 million completely zeroed and can basically not play the game for 6 months afterwards unless you're spending $1,000 on retraining. Well, this is the only thing in this game so far that brings that terrible zero back. So I really just wanted to warn everybody to not take this policy in almost any scenario or in any case. It will only help the massive whales with endless funds and endless resources, which really isn't, because mana is really hard to buy and come by. So this is really, if mana was easier to farm, it would be a different game. But this means that you have to be, every time you're fighting, you have to be looking at your hospital and keep healing, keep healing, keep healing. You can be sending 5 full marches out and fill half your hospital instantly. If you do that too many times without realizing, if you forget you're in the middle of action, you're on Discord, you're talking, everything's happening, you forget your hospital is almost full, your 5 marches get wiped, you just lost 200,000 troops, bam, gone. So really, this is my warning to you guys. Let me know what you think about these policies. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you on my next video.